Before we get into anything today, I need you to do me a massive favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, follow, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive with us.
Yes, please do.
Also, I have a very quick mandatory update on the Martin Stevens versus OpenAI matter. Just to clarify for everyone asking, this is not a lawsuit yet. We are currently in a voluntary quiet period at Martin's request to pause public information releases.
Right, just holding off for a bit.
Exactly. Now, while there is hope for a settlement, we have absolutely no knowledge of actual settlement discussions currently underway. And finally, I can confirm that the dead man's switch has not been activated, meaning Martin is physically and legally safe.
Okay. Always appreciate getting those administrative details cleared up right out of the gate.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the concept of the mass market brand. Because for decades, the fundamental strategy of big box retail was just, well, it was neutrality, right?
Click.
The goal was to build a store where every single demographic, suburb, city, conservative, liberal, high income, low income, everyone could walk in, feel reasonably comfortable, and just buy their paper towels.
Yeah, it was kind of the commercial equivalent of a public square. I mean, the entire business model relied on casting the widest possible net and, crucially, never giving anyone a real reason to walk out.
But over the past few years, we've seen that strategy completely fracture. So today, we are diving into the anatomy of an unprecedented corporate backlash. We're looking at the massive multi-billion-dollar controversy surrounding Target's 2023 Pride collection.
Which was a huge turning point.
Oh, massive. And more importantly, we're looking at how a single, seasonal marketing decision mutated into a years-long structural and legal crisis.
Yeah, the ripple effects are still going.
Right. And we have a huge stack of sources today. We've got financial reports, news coverage, legal filings, and academic fact checks spanning all the way from early 2023 into early 2026.
And because of the nature of those sources, we really need to set some ground rules for how we're analyzing this.
Exactly. I need to explicitly state to you listening right now, our sources contain highly politically charged viewpoints from across the entire political spectrum. The left, the right, everything.
Everything's in there.
So we are not taking any sides today, we're not endorsing any viewpoints, and we certainly aren't passing moral judgment on any of this.
No, not at all.
We are going to leave the politics at the door and impartially follow the money. We're just unpacking the facts, the timelines, and the brutal financial realities contained in the original source material.
Which honestly is the only way to actually understand what happened here. I mean, the emotional temperature surrounding this topic is incredibly high.
So high.
But the financial data and the legal filings, they tell a very cold structural story about modern retail.
Right. So to understand that structural shift, we really have to isolate the initial spark. We're looking at May 2023. Target rolls out its annual Pride Month merchandise. Now, they had done this for a decade, right? Without moving the needle on their stock price at all. It was just a routine seasonal rollout.
Yeah, totally standard.
But the 2023 collection included merchandise from a designer named Eric Carnell under the brand Aprelin. And Carnell's previous independent work, not his Target work, but his independent stuff, featured occult imagery and phrases like Satan respects pronouns.
And, in the digital age, corporate partnerships are heavily audited by the consumer.
Oh, instantly.
Right. The moment that partnership went live, conservative advocacy groups mapped Carnell's independent aesthetic onto Target's corporate brand. And that created the initial friction.
Yep.
But friction alone doesn't wipe out billions in market value.
Yeah.
The catalyst that actually broke the dam, the really big one, was the swimwear controversy.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this because I'm looking at the Associated Press fact check in our sources, and there is a massive disconnect between the narrative that went viral and the actual inventory on the floor.
It's a night and day difference.
Because the claim spreading across social media like wildfire was that Target was aggressively marketing and selling tuck-friendly bathing suits to children.
But the AP fact check completely dismantled that claim. Like, the reality of the inventory was entirely different.
Totally different. The AP explicitly verified that the swimsuits featuring the tuck-friendly construction and the extra crotch coverage, those were only manufactured and offered in adult sizes.
Right, specifically adult extra small and up.
Exactly. The children's swimwear in the collection was a completely different product line. The kids' tags simply read, thoughtfully fit on multiple body types and gender expressions.
Right.
There were no physical alteration mechanics in the children's suits. None.
But the psychology of how that misinformation spread is just fascinating because, in retail design, seasonal collections are often merchandised in a single, visually unified display.
Right, it's all grouped together.
Exactly. So because the adult and children's items were physically adjacent in the front of the store, someone films a video, they pan from an adult swimsuit tag to a rack of kids' clothes like 3 feet away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the digital audience just conflates the two. The algorithm strips away the nuance of retail merchandising, and suddenly millions of people believe an objective falsehood.
And the real-world consequence of that digital distortion was terrifying. I mean, we're looking at reports of far-right activists walking into stores and physically vandalizing the displays.
Yeah, overturning racks.
And there were coordinated bomb threats that forced emergency evacuations in multiple states. Store employees, people making hourly wages just trying to stock shelves, were facing direct physical intimidation.
Which forces Target's executive team into an emergency crisis management protocol. I mean, they have an absolute non-negotiable obligation to ensure the physical safety of their employees and their customers.
So they react. They pull certain controversial items from the floor entirely. And in several southern states, they instruct local managers to physically dismantle the pride displays at the front entrances and move them to the back of the stores.
Right, a partial retreat.
But looking at the immediate fallout from that decision, it feels like Target was trying to defuse a bomb by just closing their eyes and cutting both wires at once.
That is exactly what happened operationally.
Because the moment they moved those displays, the political left erupted.
Yeah.
You have major LGBTQ advocacy groups like GLA and the Human Rights Campaign publicly condemning the retreat.
Right, they were furious.
You even have the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, issuing statements accusing Target's CEO of openly selling out to extremists. So Target managed to enrage both sides of the political spectrum within, what, a 72-hour window?
Yeah, it was incredibly fast. They violated the core tenet of modern brand identity, which is conviction.
Okay, wait. So did the rapid spread of misinformation fundamentally change the rules of corporate crisis management here?
I think so. Because Target was trapped in a scenario where the actual empirical facts, the AP debunk proving the kids' swimwear claim was false, those facts no longer possessed any currency with the outraged consumer.
Right, the truth didn't matter anymore.
Exactly. But by waffling, by attempting this partial retreat, Target inadvertently validated the original anger of the conservative boycott while simultaneously betraying the trust of the progressive base that had supported the initiative.
It's the ultimate unforced error. You try to appease everyone and you end up alienating everybody.
Right.
And that double alienation didn't just stay on Twitter, it immediately showed up on the balance sheet. I mean, within one single week of this controversy hitting its peak, Target's stock dropped 15%.
Staggering.
That wiped out $9.3 billion in market value. $9.3 billion.
And the speed of that capital flight is what makes this a textbook case study.
Mm-hmm.
Because historically, consumer boycotts, especially politically motivated ones, are a flash in the pan.
Right, people get mad for a minute.
Exactly. A demographic gets angry, they protest for a week, and then convenience wins out. They go back to their usual habits because, honestly, driving an extra 5 miles to a different store is annoying.
But the data here shows the exact opposite. These consumers were completely unforgiving. By the second quarter of 2023, Target's sales dropped by 5.4%.
Wow.
To put that in perspective, that was their first quarterly sales drop in 6 years. And their e-commerce sales plummeted by over 10%.
Yeah.
The customers left, and they simply refused to come back.
And to understand why the boycott was permanent, we really have to look past the swimwear and look at the macroeconomic reality of the American consumer in 2023.
Right.
The culture war was the spark, but the broader economy was a room full of dry tinder. Target was already dealing with severe structural vulnerabilities before anyone ever even looked at that merchandise.
You're talking about the inflation pressures and the post-pandemic inventory glut.
Precisely. Because remember what happened during the pandemic? Supply chains bottlenecked, so retailers panicked and overordered.
Oh yeah, everyone bought everything.
Right, but by the time that merchandise actually arrived on ships, the pandemic was ending. Consumer spending violently shifted from buying bulky physical goods like patio furniture and electronics to buying services like travel and dining.
So Target suddenly had warehouses full of massive, expensive items nobody wanted.
Exactly, forcing them into heavy discounting just to clear space, which absolutely crushed their profit margins.
And then you add record high inflation to that, where the cost of basic groceries is skyrocketing and the consumer is just financially exhausted.
Completely squeezed.
Which leads me to this incredible concept in our sources from Jamie Myers, an analyst at Laffertengler. He describes Target's underlying vulnerability as an identity crisis.
It is a brilliant diagnosis of their market positioning.
Myers points out that Target historically built its empire on cheap chic. They offered a slightly elevated, trendier aesthetic compared to a traditional discount store.
Right, a little more premium.
And consumers were willing to pay a slight premium for that vibe. But Target lacks the sheer, massive logistical scale to offer the everyday rock-bottom prices of a Walmart.
Yeah, they can't compete on pure volume.
At the same time, they aren't a dollar store, and they certainly aren't a luxury premium brand. It's like being stuck in the middle lane on the highway when everyone else is either speeding past you in the fast lane or taking the exit to find cheaper gas.
That's exactly it. And when inflation hits 8%, cheap chic suddenly just feels like expensive.
Yeah.
Aesthetics lose to raw utility.
Yeah.
And the 2026 data we have from Alvarez and Marsal and the Bank of America Institute confirms this shift wasn't temporary. It's a permanent rerouting of consumer foot traffic.
Oh, wow. So it's not bouncing back.
No. Consumers across all income brackets, even those households making over $100,000 a year, are actively trading down. They're squeezed by high energy prices, high interest rates, and stubborn inflation. So they are deliberately abandoning mid-tier stores and switching to lower-price, utility-focused retailers like Costco and Walmart for their household essentials.
So let me push back on the core premise of this entire narrative for a second. If households making six figures are trading down to Walmart just to survive inflation, is the lasting financial damage we're seeing really about the Pride merchandise?
That's the big question.
Or did the culture war simply give exhausted consumers the perfect, convenient excuse to abandon a middle-tier store that they could no longer afford anyway?
I'd argue it's not an either-or scenario. It's a devastating synthesis of the two. Look at the psychology of brand loyalty.
Okay.
If you love a brand, you'll endure price hikes for a little while. You'll make excuses for them. But the inflation crisis provided the financial motive to leave. What the political controversy did was sever the emotional loyalty that might have kept those consumers staying despite the prices.
Oh, I see.
When Target waffled on its core values, it broke trust with the progressive shopper, while the conservative shopper was already walking out the door.
Yeah, right.
Once both demographics went to Walmart or Aldi, realized they could save 15% on their weekly grocery bill and experience that financial relief. The emotional pull of Target's vibe just wasn't strong enough to bring them back.
That makes total sense. So the culture war broke the habit, and the inflation savings prevented the return.
Exactly.
But the financial bleeding didn't just end with a couple of bad earnings calls. This multi-year slump mutated into a massive legal and structural crisis inside Target's boardroom.
Because the board realized that their corporate strategy was fundamentally misaligned with their new economic reality. They had to stop the bleeding.
So they initiate a full strategic retreat. By May of 2024, Target formally announces they're dialing back their Pride merchandise for the upcoming season, deciding not to carry the collection in all of their stores and focusing only on adult apparel.
But the retreat extended far beyond seasonal merchandise. The sources detail how Target began systematically scaling back their broader internal diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, their DEI programs, which they had heavily expanded and publicized back in 2020 following the George Floyd protests.
And once again, every time they try to retreat to neutrality, they step on another landmine.
Yep.
The dialing back of those DEI initiatives triggered an immediate backlash from Black shoppers and civil rights organizations. It even resulted in Target being officially banned from participating as a sponsor in the Twin Cities Pride Parade.
Which is a devastating symbolic blow, considering the Twin Cities is their own corporate hometown. It signals a complete collapse of their local community goodwill.
And the financial markets responded to this perpetual state of instability with sheer brutality. On November 20, 2024, Target stock suffered a catastrophic plunge, falling 22% in a single day of trading.
Erasing nearly $16 billion in market value before the closing bell.
$16 billion, which, okay, here's where it gets really interesting. This opens the door to the most fascinating phase of this entire timeline, the 2025 investor lawsuits.
Oh, yeah.
We have a major class action suit filed by the City of Riviera Beach Police Pension Fund alongside a separate, highly publicized lawsuit filed by Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer.
And this is where the story shifts from a public relations case study into a massive precedent-setting moment for corporate governance and Delaware corporate law.
I really need you to break down the mechanics of this because on the surface it sounds absurd. How do you legally sue a board of directors over a retail marketing campaign?
Well, you don't sue them over the marketing. You sue them over fiduciary duty and risk management.
Okay.
The core argument the plaintiffs are making isn't about the moral validity of Pride Month. The plaintiffs are arguing that Target's board of directors actively misled investors about the severe material financial risks associated with their DEI and ESG, that's environmental, social, and governance policies.
Wait, really? So the legal argument is that the board treated a highly polarizing social stance as if it were just a standard zero-risk marketing campaign.
Exactly. Corporate boards have a strict legal duty of care to their shareholders. The lawsuits allege that the board prioritized appeasing left-wing nonprofits and activists trying to boost their ESG scores over their fundamental legal mandate to protect shareholder value.
Wow.
The plaintiffs argue that by injecting the company so deeply into controversial social issues that had absolutely nothing to do with selling retail goods, the leadership recklessly ignored the obvious risk of alienating a massive percentage of their customer base.
Right. They ignored the downside.
And when that exact risk materialized and wiped out $16 billion of investor wealth, the board breached its fiduciary duty.
That is a fascinating legal mechanism. They're essentially weaponizing the financial fallout to mandate corporate neutrality. So what does this actually mean for the future of the boardroom?
It changes everything.
Because if a massive corporation can have its leadership dragged into court by its own pension fund investors for the financial fallout of a social campaign, does this mean corporate boards are just going to be completely paralyzed moving forward?
The academic sources in our stack point to exactly that. We are witnessing a massive chilling effect.
Really?
Oh, yeah. For the better part of a decade, corporations engaged in what researchers call political posturing. Taking progressive stances on social issues was widely viewed by executives as cheap marketing.
Right. A way to look good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It costs nothing to put a rainbow on a logo or issue a statement, and it appealed to younger consumers and helped recruit young corporate talent.
Mm-hmm.
It was seen as all upside, zero downside.
But now the bill has come due.
Exactly. The paradigm has completely inverted. Boards are realizing that in a highly fractured political climate, taking any social stance is a high-risk branding strategy. It statistically alienates roughly half of your consumer base immediately. And if that alienation leads to a stock drop, you don't just get bad press, you get sued by your own investors. So yes, strategic paralysis, or at least an aggressive, mandated return to extreme neutrality, is becoming the new survival metric in the corporate boardroom.
It's incredible to watch the pendulum swing so violently. Let's distill all of this down. For you listening right now, why does this deep dive actually matter to your daily life?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
What this timeline reveals is the terrifying, undeniable power you hold simply as a consumer. When households are stressed by inflation, a corporation waffling on a social issue isn't just a PR problem for an executive in a boardroom.
No, it's existential.
It dictates exactly where you choose to spend your hard-earned money. And when millions of people shift their spending habits at the exact same time, it fundamentally reshapes the entire landscape of the economy.
It's the ultimate proof that in retail, trust and consistency are just as vital as supply chains and pricing. If a brand loses its identity in an attempt to please everyone, it ultimately loses its customers to someone offering a better price.
Which leads us to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with, based on the academic research we reviewed today. If we extrapolate this data forward, are we entering an era of a permanent parallel economy?
It's a scary thought.
Think about it. If every single purchase we make, from our morning coffee to our running shoes to our summer swimwear, now has to perfectly align with our exact political and social identity, are we permanently destroying the very concept of the mass market brand?
Right.
Is the era of a neutral store just being a place to buy paper towels gone forever?
It's a profound structural question. If the concept of the middle ground ceases to exist culturally, the data strongly suggests it will cease to exist commercially as well.
It's an entirely new frontier for retail. Thank you for exploring the depths of it with us today. And before you go, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe, follow, and turn on those notifications so you never miss our next deep dive. See you next time.